We want to give a warm welcome to Paul Batz this morning.
We're going to spend the next few minutes working on you. And as you're digging into the bag, let's start with this question. Do you believe that you can work less, have more fun, and get better results? Now, when I speak to entrepreneurs, we say it this way. Do you believe you can work less, have more fun, and make more money? Well, honestly, I do. And that's really what I've made the focus of my work. But it means that we need to focus a little bit on our personal leadership. So we're going to do that. And I want to talk to you about how this idea came to be. It started with a conversation several years ago with a client. Let me introduce you to this guy, a young leader named Mike. Mike was tapped on the shoulder to become CEO of a very large company several years before anybody thought he was ready, including himself. And I was hired to be his executive coach. So in the process of executive coaching, we typically interview important people that surround the leader both above and below, and sometimes we call that a 360. So in the context of interviewing, I met this salty veteran woman, his CFO, whose name is Emily. And I made the assumption that Emily has seen a lot of leaders come and go in her career. And so I simply said to her, why do you think Mike can get the job done right here, right now? And her answer really changed my life. And here's what she said. She said, it's easy. He radiates goodness. And I looked at her. Now, I've been doing this work for a long time. And I have never heard anyone say something like radiates goodness about an executive. What I usually hear is, he's super strategic, she's razor smart. I typically hear things like, customers love him, or you know what, she can really hold people accountable, but I've never heard he radiates goodness. So I said to her, please tell me some more. And she said, well, you have to understand that the culture around here is really goofy. We've been trying to hit some really large corporate goals with a whole bunch of tired, jaded, and cynical executives. And what's happened is we've got this purple stink cloud hanging over the organization. I'd never heard that one either. And she said, seriously, within 6 weeks of this guy taking over, we're actually cutting through the suspicion and doubt. We are actually working together in ways we've never done before. And honestly, we feel like winners again. This guy radiates goodness. I could not get that idea out of my head. And so over the last 5 or 6 years, we've been researching, I've been writing, speaking, and coaching on this concept of how to spread goodness in leadership. And so I came back to her and I asked her again in a more in-depth session. I said, please help me understand, what do you see when you see goodness in leadership? She said there are 4 very specific things. The first thing is that he consistently rewards excellence instead of playing favorites the way we used to do things and encouraging people to cut corners. The second thing, which I found was really fascinating, he lives generously. He actually decided for the first year while he was CEO to have lunch every day in the lunchroom with the employees, just asking, what's going on in your lives? What do you see in the business? The other thing he did I thought was super smart was he opened up the expense account to the managers so they could actually buy coffee for their employees again. Then she introduced me to this concept of spreading fairness, of actually promoting fairness in the workplace. And it was most critical in the fact that the coolest jobs in the organization that used to be held by sort of the good old boy network, he went out and found young people to be a part of that leadership team to take on those jobs. And he encouraged them to go out and encourage other people to criticize management. And finally, he spread positivity. Lord knows he inherited an organization that had lots of struggles and a lot of reasons he could have gone negative, but he didn't go negative. Instead, he sort of walked around whistling. So, rewarding excellence, living generously, promoting fairness, and spreading positivity. Those are the things that we write and coach about today. Now, Elizabeth mentioned this thing called the Good Leadership Breakfast. It's the biggest joy in my life. 4 years ago, we started this concept where we got people together to talk about goodness in leadership. We have sold out the last 8 meetings in a row. We're moving to another space, and it's because we've created an environment where leaders like you can talk about things like spreading goodness. But now let's look at this handout here, because I also want to talk about the concept of the 7 F's. A friend of mine, Tim Schmidt, we wrote this book called What Really Works 4.5 years ago. It's done really well, and it's all about this concept of how good leaders blend together the 7 F's to live with less stress and lead with less fear. And we think that's a huge part of the goodness component, and it comes from and highlights personal leadership. So if you take on the back of this sheet here and get your pen, I want to introduce you to the 7 F's and show you how the 7 F's wheel works. So the 7 F's work like this. It starts at the top. There are 7 F's in alphabetical order. Faith, family, that's the Dave Horsager scale. Finances, fitness, friends, fun, that's the Robin Getman scale, and future. And here's how it works. You see the number 1 in the middle? That means it couldn't be any worse. And number 10 on the top means it couldn't be any better. So now you're going to do your own 7 F's assessment. This is important to personal leadership. And as we start, let's start with the first F, faith. Now, I'm not asking you, are you religious? I'm not asking you who you worship or if you worship. What I am asking you to do is to reconcile right now with the satisfaction that you have with your spiritual life. And as you're making your assessment between 1 and 10, let me just tell you that I've had a lot of people say to me, we love the 7 F's wheel, but can you come to my organization and just talk about 6 F's? Because I don't think my organization can handle the faith conversation at work. Well, the answer is no. And one of the reasons why is because we're voting with our pocketbooks. The only category in publishing that's actually growing today is spirituality. We're working longer and harder than we thought we would, and we're working on our spirituality to help that. So give yourself a score, 1 through 10, on faith. And if you are resisting, you want to take a clean one home, we have extras. So family is the Horsager scale. Give yourself a score from 1 to 10 on how satisfied you are with your family life. Finances is next. I'm not asking you how much money you make. I'm simply asking you, how well does the money that you make fund your priorities? The next F is fitness. Is there anybody in the room under 40? You don't have a clue. I just turned 50, and I have to think about my fitness very differently than I used to before. So be honest, give yourself a score, 1 to 10 on fitness. Friends are the people who share our joys and disappointments in our lives. We need friends, right? Give yourself a score, 1 through 10. Fun is the Robin Getman scale. Give yourself a score from 1 through 10. When we talk about fun, we talk about being playful and joyful. Those aren't words we hear much about in the workplace, right? And finally, future. Future is about the hope that we feel for ourselves and for other people. So as you've done that, you've just completed a very powerful assessment that is alive and well in the day-to-day activities of some of the most powerful executives in the Twin Cities. They've heard this, they use this, but now you have to complete the exercise. Do the kindergarten thing and connect the dots. And as you connect the dots, you are creating a shape. Now, I don't have any scientific data to prove this, but I actually think the 7 F's wheel is a realistic way to think about a well-rounded leader. Will your wheel roll? I heard ka-chunk over here. We think that this picture in the front of your brain as you operate can make you a better leader. Let me simply close by saying that at Good Leadership Enterprises, we understand what it takes to create compelling keynotes. We understand what it takes to create inspiring workshops, create inspiring retreats, because we're in the event business. We have people like you who are looking for speakers to come and be at our breakfast and to be a part of the conferences that we do. And so we hope you consider us. We would be grateful for the opportunity, unless, of course, you don't really want to work less, have more fun, and get better results. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Holly because I know it's time for us to head to our break. Thank you very much.